in the process that we're required to go through a study. And after that, we can take some general questions. We're also going to be around for the next hour or so. And as you saw, the station posters outside will be available if you want to discuss with us one-on-one on particular issues. With that, we'll go on to the next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, great. As we mentioned earlier, our cost-sharing partners are here, and this is a combined federal and non-federal effort to address management of long-term flood risks in the study area. Our study partners are the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the County of Westchester Planning Department, as well as the Village of Mamaroneck, the towns of Mamaroneck and Harrison. The Corps of Engineers is required by law to share federal and non-federal dollars for these flood risk management studies. And the state and the county are the non-federal cost-sharing partners for the study. The other study partners are also providing very valuable and necessary types of non-financial support. Thanks to Congresswoman Nita Lowey, the full federal share for the study has been provided, and we also have a portion of the non-federal share as well. This meeting is basically going to serve two purposes. One, to publicly initiate the study to address the flood risk management within the study area, and also to take your input as part of the planning process as required by the federal law called the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, as a lot of people call it. Next slide. Now, just to clarify, as most of you probably know, but if you did not know, this is a study, a flood risk management study. And sometimes we make reference in the Corps of Engineers to a project. But please remember that we are required by law to conduct an extensive in-depth study before Congress can authorize and fund the Corps of Engineers to proceed with the design and construction of a project. For background, as many of you know, in 1977, there was a feasibility study that was completed. And in 1986, Congress passed a Water Resources Development Act, or WRDA, as it's often called, which authorized the project at that time. A few years later, there was a detailed design that was developed, a general design memorandum, they were called at that time. However, at that time, it was not economically feasible to proceed with that recommended plan. Therefore, the Corps was not able to construct the project. Years later, and there was some serious flooding in March and April of 2007, and the state and the county approached the Corps to initiate a study to reduce flood risks. And it was determined within the Corps of Engineers that the best path forward, rather than do a whole new feasibility study, was to do a general reevaluation report, a GRR. It's a re-evaluation study, and basically what that does is it updates the previous information. It looks at the recommended plan as it stood back then, but it updates it with new information since so many years have passed. In March of this year, the federal government, the Corps of Engineers, and the state and the county signed an agreement. We also, as I mentioned earlier, got our full federal share from Congress to start the study. So with that, since March, we've been working on it, and we've been out in the field collecting data and moving forward with this study. Next slide, please. We'd like to just take a moment to address the meaning of flood risk management. Flood risk management saves lives and reduces economic losses. It does not, however, totally eliminate all risk from any type of flooding, from all types of flooding. There's always going to be the risk of some flood in the future that could happen that is going to damage something. So there are no guarantees, and the reality is that because of economics, we have limitations to what we can design for. However, given that, flood risk management is something that we can all work together for, whether it's a study that will proceed to a design and to construction, but also all sorts of other efforts that can take place at the federal, state, local level, and private citizens. And many of you are all aware of the various responsibilities that government has at federal, state, local level, and non-governmental organizations and private citizens. And we all share these responsibilities when planning and preparing for floods. And this slide just outlines some of those general roles and responsibilities.